Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 170 based on novel. So let's start. In the empty ice room, Xiao Yan was lying unconscious on the ice bed. At this moment, Xiao Yan's whole right arm had turned into an ice blue color. The surface of his arm was like covered with a layer of ice armor. Through this layer of ice armor, you can see pieces of scales like ice crystals. That was Xiao Yan's dragon phoenix ancient armor. Xiao Yan's body was invaded by cold poison, while the inside of the arm is sealed by cold ice. It also inspires Xiao Yan's dragon phoenix ancient armor to protect Xiao Yan's body from injury without consciousness. With the passage of time, the cold poison that invaded Xiao Yan's body almost filled Xiao Yan's whole right arm, but after all, it can only be like this. The cold poison that entered Xiao Yan's body is only a small part of the cold frost body. It can freeze Xiao Yan's arm, which is enough to prove the power of this cold poison. However, while the cold poison stopped, the different fire suppressed in Xiao Yan's body gradually recovered. For the cold poison that occupied Xiao Yan's right arm, the attack of different fire never stopped, but the two are not high or low. The cold poison can't cause substantive damage to Xiao Yan's body in a short time, but different fire can't help Xiao Yan. Finally, the cold poison was finally burned by different fire. After a long time of consumption, Xiao Yan's breath gradually recovered in his deep sleep, but this cold poison would not. It was only expected that the cold poison would be destroyed. However, while the cold poison was refined by different fire, a trace of pure energy contained in the cold poison was swept by different fire, back to the cyclone of Xiao Yang. The moment the pure energy poured into Xiao Yang's cyclone space, it was quickly decomposed. Compared with this trace of pure energy, Xiao Yang's fighting spirit was really empty and tight. As soon as the latter entered Xiao Yang's cyclone space, it was immediately torn apart by those fighting spirit and complemented each other. However, in a twinkling of an eye, the fighting spirit that had been consumed in Xiao Yang's cyclone space, it's not over yet. With the supplement of those energy, Xiao Yang's cyclone space is gradually filled up, and the stored fighting spirit is still better than Xiao Yang's peak state. When all the ice blue colors wrapped on Xiao Yang's right arm disappeared, Xiao Yang's body trembled involuntarily, and his pale face had completely recovered. Shua. Then, Xiao Yang's closed eyes suddenly opened. In the dark eyes, a flash of light flashed in an instant. His thin body was slightly shocked, and great power suddenly poured out. While the ice bed under his body was broken, Xiao Yang's body jumped up from it, and then stood steadily on the ground. At the same time, in another place in the ice palace, before a small pool, the cold frost with beautiful eyes closed slowly opened her eyes at this moment. Beautiful eyes seemed to inadvertently glance at the direction of Xiao Yang. The light in beautiful eyes flickered slightly. Soon, her eyes were closed again. Feeling the abundant fighting spirit in his body at the moment, Xiao Yang couldn't help but gently eyebrow. He wondered how long he had been in a coma. As soon as he woke up, the fighting spirit in his body had recovered. "Old bone, how long have I been in a coma this time?" Xiao Yang frowned lightly and asked in the bottom of his heart. Hey, I'm not afraid to scare you for 3 hours. Jiyu smiled and said something that stunned Xiao Yang. For 3 hours? Didn't he sleep for a while and even have problems with his ears? He clearly remembered that when he healed cold frost before he was unconscious. When I suddenly thought of this in my mind, Xiao Yang's old face suddenly became hot. At the thought of the special touch from his hands at that time, Xiao Yang even couldn't help raising his hand to touch his nose and sniffed it. It seemed that there was still some fragrance in his palm. Then Xiao Yang found that his raised palm, it was the right hand walking upstream of the cold frost body at that time. Cough. Old bone, what's going on? With an old red face, Xiao Yang tried to recover his mind. Only then did he ask Jiyu. Hey, smelly boy, I thought you didn't get any benefits this time, but now it seems that you have gained so much. It seemed that he had seen through what Xiao Yang thought at the bottom of his heart. He smiled badly. Immediately, he explained what had happened in Xiao Yang's body to Xiao Yang. Suddenly, Xiao Yang suddenly realized. Unexpectedly, The cold poison was so fierce that even Xiao Yang, who was protected by different fire, could erode into it. Fortunately, Xiao Yang finally got lucky because those cold poisons accumulated in the cold frost for many years, which contained many forces that should belong to the cold frost. When those forces were refined by Xiao Yang's different fire, all the pure energy belongs to Xiao Yang. Of course, most of the source qi dispersed freely. Only this part of the fighting qi was used by Xiao Yang, so that the strength of Xiao Yang's 6-star and half emperor in his later period was completely stable in just a few hours. Different from other levels, this level is the most special among all levels, because at this stage, there will be fighting qi and source qi in the cultivator's body at the same time. The two energies coexist between heaven and earth and do not collide with each other. However, if you want to be strong in the source environment, you must first convert all the fighting qi in your body into source qi. During this period, source qi and fighting qi coexist and change gradually. When fighting qi is completely transformed into source qi, you can become a strong person returning to the source environment. Therefore, only after Xiao Yang's different fire refined the cold poison energy can he get pure fighting spirit from it. Don't be happy too early. Although your strength has been consolidated, the Bodhisattva has fallen into the girl's hand. As soon as Guyo said this, Xiao Yang's eyes suddenly coagulated, which reminded him of the biggest purpose of this trip. By the way, back to Bodhisattva, that ice spirit cold liquid. Don't think about it, smelly boy. You touched the girl's body. Do you think she cannot kill you? It's not for the sake of Huibiden. She urgently needs Huibiden to recover her injuries, so she let you go. If she didn't have the cold poison in her body, she would have died. Before Xiao Yang's words fell, Guyo was gloating. His words were like a basin of cold water on Xiao Yang's head. Back to Bodhisattva, the girl has taken it away. As for Bingling cold liquid, there is no hope. In the ice room filled with cold, Xiao Yang stood in place with a slightly wooden body, frowned tightly, and thousands of thoughts in his heart. What the woman said. Won't you really give it away? Xiao Yang's heart sank slightly. Bingling cold liquid was related to Bingling pill. It was very important for him today. No matter what, he couldn't make any mistakes in this matter. Now the medicinal materials needed to refine ice elixir have been basically gathered, but this ice spirit cold liquid is needed. If something goes wrong at this point, Xiao Yang can't return to heaven even if he has many means. What do you think is false if you say it with her strength? Mutter. His face changed slightly, and Xiao Yang seemed to have an answer in his heart. Is that how to go back? Xiao Yang's unwilling way. He also didn't expect that he should have been kind-hearted to save people, but he ended up like this. He really lost his wife and his soldiers. Now, he not only didn't benefit the cold frost, but also lost the ice spirit cold liquid. Without ice spirit cold liquid, how can he refine ice elixir? Without ice elixir, how can he devour different fire? Is it just his blood? It's terrible. Maybe you can try here. Your current position is very close to Bingling Cold Spring. Maybe you can extract some Bingling cold liquid from the air here. As soon as Guyo said this, Xiao Yang sighed helplessly. Although he didn't want to, this is the only way at present. Alas, it seems that we can only do this first. Then Xiao Yang wanted to sit down, but at this time, somewhere in the ice palace, the cold frost on the edge of the pool changed suddenly on his pretty face. Meanwhile, despite the isolation of the ice wall, Xiao Yang still felt that the ice room he was in at the moment was trembling slightly. This is... What happened? It's Bingling Cold Spring. Go quickly. Xiao Yang can't clearly detect it, but it doesn't mean that Yu doesn't know. Under the latter's huge soul power, the ice palace can't stop him. Hearing Yu's words, Xiao Yang's face could not help but change slightly. Suddenly, an ominous premonition rose in his heart. Following Yu's guidance, Xiao Yang quickly set off and ran away in the direction of Bingling Cold Spring. There was a pond about 50 feet in size. At this time, the cold frost pretty face looked very dignified. The breath that had not yet recovered its peak gushed out unreservedly at this moment. A pair of beautiful eyes stared at the pool in front of them, as if they were waiting for something. On the other side, under the traction of Guyo, Xiao Yang is getting closer and closer to the pool. However, in the twinkling of an eye, a quarter of an hour has passed. After Xiao Yang repeatedly bypassed dozens of lanes, his vision suddenly opened, and all the buildings in front of him disappeared. Instead, it was a pool. At this moment, on the edge of the pool, a world-famous woman wrapped under a long white skirt was standing in mid-air. A vast imposing force poured out without reservation, and looked incomparably dignified on a beautiful face. Well. Seeing the cold frost, Xiao Yang's heart sank slightly at first, and then his eyes fell on the pool in front of him. Ice Spirit Cold Spring. Xiao Yang's heart was slightly shocked. The pool in front of him was the Bingling Cold Spring he was looking for. The spring water is the cold liquid of Bingling, no doubt. Suddenly, Xiao Yang's face could not help showing a crazy color. The last main medicine for refining ice elixir has now appeared in front of him. It can be said that it is close at hand. What are you doing here? Get out. Seeing Xiao Yang coming, Leng Bingshuang was pretty cold, and his tone was particularly cold. However, just at the moment when the words fell in the mouth of the cold frost, the pool in the field suddenly and violently rolled up, and the boiling bubbles surged out from the depths of the pool. At the moment of bursting on the water surface, a large amount of cold air was released, which was like white fog and quickly diffused. If there was only a small piece of cold fog, it would be all right. But the cold fog that appeared in front of Xiao Yang's eyes at the moment quickly shrouded the whole pool surface. The fog was so thick that it even blocked the sight of cold frost. Damn it! The frequency of cold pool outbreak is getting higher and higher recently. Seeing this scene, Leng Bingshuang's heart suddenly sank, and quickly released the only energy in his body to form an energy mask to cover the periphery of the whole pool, trying to block the diffusion of those fog. Hiss, hiss. Although the practice of cold frost has played a role, it may be that at the moment of touching the energy mask, a thick white fog rises rapidly between the two, and the original thick energy mask is melting rapidly with the speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! Cold Frost's pretty face changed. Now her state is not at the peak, so that she has no extra strength to continue to support the energy mask. If it goes on like this, it must be a short time before her energy mask will be broken. But at this critical moment, Xiao Yang in the rear came forward quickly. Compared with the cold frost, Xiao Yang's state at this time was incomparably better. The fighting spirit in his body poured out of his body like a flood burst, swept away like the sky and earth, mixed with strong strange fire, and shrouded again around the energy cover of the cold frost. Hiss, hiss, hiss. In a short time, the terrible high temperature is to quickly dissolve the cold fog inside the two-layer energy hood. Although the cold fog is still increasing rapidly, it is believed that the energy hood formed by the two people cannot be broken in a short time. Seeing the appearance of this scene, Leng Bingshuang breathed a long sigh of relief. Then he turned his head, and his eyes suddenly became extremely cold. He stared at Xiao Yang and said coldly, "I told you to get out. What are you doing here?" This time, Xiao Yang looked relaxed, smiled, and said, "If I leave, can you handle this ice spirit cold spring alone? I don't need your half-emperor to intervene in my work." When Leng Bingshuang was angry, he just wanted to mobilize the source gas in his body. Only then did he find that he had no trace of source gas to mobilize. Save it. Just like you are now, you'd better have a rest first. As for this thing, give it to me. Xiao Yang smiled confidently. The original worry in his heart was completely eliminated in this short moment. A pair of dark eyes were as calm as the deep pool in the past. They stared at the pool in the energy mask in front of them. In the depths of their eyes, a touch of essence flickered and disappeared, even the cold frost had not been found. According to the size of the cold pool condensed by Bingling Cold Spring, it is 10 feet in 1,000 years, 20 feet in 2,000 years, and so on. Now, the cold pool in front of Xiao Yang is at least 50 feet in size. Therefore, it is concluded that the cold pool has existed for at least 5,000 years. 5,000 years, I don't know how many times the times have changed. The existence of Bingling Cold Spring is long enough. Therefore, the value of Bingling Cold Spring is also obvious. As for the situation of Bingling Cold Spring at the moment, it is a state of energy overflow, which shows that the Bingling cold liquid in the cold pool has accumulated to an extremely huge amount, and the energy is even more powerful and incredible. Generally speaking, energy overflow should not have happened, because with the growth of Bingling Cold Spring, those energy should have diffused out by themselves, making the area of the cold pool gradually increase and circulate independently, so that the energy inside Bingling Cold Spring is always in a balanced state. Normally, this should not have happened, but, because of some people, this situation has just happened in Bingling Cold Spring. Needless to say, this man is cold and frost. The hinterland of Xiao should not have been surrounded by towering snow mountains. The so-called East Wall is a masterpiece of cold frost. On the one hand, it is to prevent the energy in Bingling Cold Spring from spreading to the whole Xiao Mountains. On the other hand, it is also to hide the existence of Bingling Cold Spring so as not to be discovered by some powerful forces. From the point of view that the hinterland of Xiao has not been invaded by outsiders, the purpose of hiding Bingling Cold Spring has obviously been achieved. However, while reaching this point, the cold frost has also left an extremely serious future trouble. The establishment of those snow peaks makes the energy inside Bingling Cold Spring unable to spread outward. It's like a basketball full of air. All this has clearly reached its limit. Constant inflation will only increase the pressure inside it. At the moment when the basketball explodes, even the thicker iron sheet can't stop it. The practice of cold frost is to inflate constantly like the basketball full of air. Now, the basketball of Bingling Cold Spring has reached the critical point of explosion. Once Bingling Cold Spring completely solves the problem, I'm afraid it will suffer not only Xiao Mountain Pulse, but also cold frost himself. However, the practice of cold frost has no room for recovery. The establishment of those snow peaks makes the energy in Bingling Cold Spring more and more thick. The direct result of this is that the energy accumulated in the cold pool erupts out uncontrollably. In the past, cold frost can still suppress it forcibly, but with the passage of time, for so many years, the energy condensed in the ice spirit cold spring has been strong to an extremely terrible level. Don't say that the cold frost is not in the state at the moment. Even in its heyday, it may not be able to suppress the energy in the cold pool. At the moment, the cold fog gushing out is just a small beginning. When the energy in the cold pool breaks out completely, it is really terrible. I'm afraid that the reason why the cold frost will scold Xiao Yan to go away earlier is that she knows what will happen next. Get out of here. Don't think you can solve this problem if you block the cold fog temporarily. It's just through the power of strange fire. If you don't want to die, get out of here quickly. Cold Frost's silver teeth clenched, and a pair of angry faces yelled at Xiao Yan again in the hope that Xiao Yan could leave here. After all, in the face of the outbreak of the cold pool again and again, even she had no confidence to resist it. Poof. However, immediately after that, at the moment when the words fell in the mouth of the cold frost, a crack was suddenly opened on the energy mask behind him. Suddenly, a cold air spewed out from it and diffused in an instant. The nearest cold frost was the first to bear the brunt. The long skirt behind the cold frost was quickly covered by the cold ice. In a twinkling of an eye, the long skirt on the cold frost was completely frozen. The whole person is like being sealed under the ice and can't move. Seeing this, Xiao Yan's face in front of him could not help but change slightly. He just wanted to fight, but the crack on the energy mask behind him was getting bigger and bigger. Seeing that the energy mask was about to be broken, Xiao Yan had no time to take into account the cold frost in front of him. He set off quickly. With a wave of his big sleeve, a powerful strange fire suddenly spewed out and rushed forward like the sky and the earth. Once again, he resisted the cold fog. At the same time, the cold frost at the moment is also struggling, constantly squeezing the remaining strength of the cells in the body. At a certain moment, after exhausting all the strength, the cold frost forcibly condensed a thumb-sized source gas in the cyclone. This source gas can't do anything in the battle, but at the moment, for cold frost, it's enough to break the ice on the body surface. When his mind moved, the source gas that was only the size of his thumb quickly gushed out along the meridians in his body. At the same time, Xiao Yan also flashed back with a dignified face. Under the perception of Guu, in the depths of Bingling Cold Spring, there is a huge force pouring out rapidly at the moment. This energy mask is about to be unsustainable. In the face of that force, Even Xiao Yang can only avoid the edge temporarily. While Xiao Yang dodged and retreated, the layer of cold ice on the body surface of the cold frost was also broken. Together with the broken, there were long skirts wrapped by the cold ice. The cold ice was broken and turned into a pile of fragments. It fell down in a clear click. For a while, the snow-white body of the cold frost was completely exposed to the air. At the same time, Xiao Yang's body also came to the cold frost and wanted to take it away from here. However, the sudden scene in front of him made Xiao Yang's body dull. Seeing the beautiful body with concave convex in front of her, Xiao Yang's old face quickly became hot. The cold frost also came back at the moment when the cold ice broke. However, it was too late. Because the source gas in her body was exhausted, there was a sense of emptiness in her body at the moment, and her body almost fell to the ground. Bang! But at the next moment, I only heard a sound like a dull thunder. The energy cover covering the whole cold pool was broken instantly, and the cold fog spread rapidly. A column of water gushed out from the depths of the cold pool, sprinkling countless extremely cold water droplets, shooting rapidly in the ice palace. The sudden appearance of this scene made Xiao Yang suddenly return to his mind. He bit his teeth with hatred and couldn't care much in his heart. He hurried forward 2 steps and stretched out his hands. One was to hold the cold frost in front of him into his arms. With a cry from the cold frost's mouth, the broad black robe had wrapped the 2 people together. Xiao Yang moved at his feet. Tianjueba was instantly applied to the extreme. The whole person's body shape was almost faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared beside the cold pool. The extremely cold water column broke through the layers of thick solid ice on the top of the ice palace, and finally broke through the snow and the thick white fog over the hinterland of Xiaolin. It didn't stop until it saw the scorching sun outside the sky. The rushing water column burst and turned into a downpour, which fell on the hinterland of Xiaolin. For a short time, wherever the cold rain fell, the earth suddenly turned into a piece of solid ice. The hinterland of Xiaolin, which is covered with snow all year round, felt even colder at this moment. Below, looking at the cold pool in the ice palace, the cold fog filled the air. Through the huge hole directly above the cold pool, bursts of cold wind penetrated from the outside, just like a gang of robbers, quickly searched in the ice palace. Somewhere in the ice palace, in the ice room where Xiao Yang and Lung Bingsheng met for the first time, Xiao Yang stood impressively. At this time, in Xiao Yang's arms, he was holding the cold frost with weak breath. His already soft body seemed more delicate under such conditions. The snow-white body glowed more white in the ice palace, as if he had bathed in milk. A large amount of spring light was exposed in the cold air. Without the support of source qi, how could this body bear such a cold temperature? The face of cold frost turned white quickly. The delicate body couldn't help a slight trembling. The beauty who was already shrinking in Xiao Yang's arms involuntarily stretched out her hand to hold Xiao Yang's arms, and Xiaono's almost drank the warm breath emitted from Xiao Yang. Like this, if ordinary people see it, they will laugh and can't control their emotions. Even at this time, Xiao Yang will inevitably have a violent agitation in his heart, but fortunately, he forced him to suppress it in the end. But at this time, the cold frost in Xiao Yang's arms was also obviously aware of a trace of abnormality on Xiao Yang. The whole person's spirit also woke up in an instant. A pale pretty face suddenly became crimson, as if he had strength in an instant, and hurried to break free from Xiao Yang's arms. After the smooth soles of their feet withdrew from the icy ground for 2 consecutive steps, they were even more shocked to find that at this time, they had been completely exposed to the man's eyes. Cough. Xiao Yang quickly took back his eyes. At the same time, with a big hand, he hurriedly took out his own black robe from Naji and handed it to the cold frost in front of him. The latter hurriedly took over the black robe. After putting on the black robe, he looked up at Xiao Yang with a red face. Cough. Well, I didn't mean to. I just did that. Just to save you. Otherwise, I'm afraid you've been swallowed up by the energy from the cold spring of Bingling. Xiao Yang also blushed, and even dared not look up at the cold frost in front of her. Previously, she had no time to respond. Now that she has recovered her calmness, if she dared to look at her at will, wouldn't she have to kill him when he recovered? Xiao Yang's words came out, and the expression on Lung Bingshuang's pretty face became extremely ashamed and angry. Although she really wanted to tear up Xiao Yangxing in front of her, if you think about it carefully, she really couldn't blame Xiao Yang. Even if it wasn't for Xiao Yang, she would really be buried under the powerful energy of the ice spirit cold spring. Once this thing is over, you'd better forget everything that happened between us. Otherwise, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, my king will kill you. After being silent for a long time, Lung Bingshuang's pretty face regained its usual indifference, but her words were even colder. Xiao Yang would not doubt her words. After all, strong people like Lung Bingshuang usually disdain to tell lies. When Lung Bingshuang finished his words, he wanted to start and walk in the direction of Bingling Cold Spring. Now the cold pool has broken out. If we can't stop it, the situation will become more and more serious. If we let it continue, we will suffer next, but it's not just the hinterland of Shilin. However, only 2 steps had been taken. The face of the cold frost that had just recovered suddenly turned white again. As soon as her delicate body was soft, she directly sat down on the ground. Seeing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but tighten her mind a little and wanted to come forward to help him. The latter waved his big sleeve and stopped Xiao Yang with a cold look. I don't need you to take care of my work. Bingling Cold Liquid will give it to you when it's over, but now, please leave the hinterland of Shilin, otherwise, I'll kill you now. Although she was too weak to move, Lung Bingshuang was still unwilling to be soft. At the bottom of her heart, she was always the king of the majestic Shilin Mountains. Any difficulties were fragile in front of him. In order to protect the Shilin Mountains, she must not fall down, let alone show any vulnerability, because that was a flaw. As a king, she must not allow herself to have any flaws. If you want to kill me, wait until it's over, but now, you'd better stay here. As for Bingling Cold Spring, I said, just give it to me. Hearing Lung Bingshuang's words, Xiao Yang not only didn't mean to retreat, but also responded with a firm tone. As soon as his palm turned over, 2 jade bottles filled with pills appeared in Xiao Yang's palm. He sent it to Lung Bingshuang, and then Xiao Yang moved. He ignored Lung Bingshuang's complex eyes. In a twinkling of an eye, his body turned into a breeze and disappeared into the ice room. After Xiao Yang left, Lung Bingshuang's original upright delicate body suddenly softened. On the other side of a woman's strength, she was more fragile and delicate. Looking at the 2 jade bottles filled with pills in front of me with complex eyes, the cold frost hesitated. Until a long time later, the silver teeth bit, grabbed a jade bottle, poured out the pills without hesitation, took them quickly, rolled up and began to refine slowly. On the other side, with the speed of Chenjua step, but in a short time, Xiao Yang came to the cold pool again. He looked at the cold pool in front of him. Xiao Yang's mouth gradually outlined a smile. Old bone, it's up to you. Hey, smelly boy, don't worry. It's absolutely safe to have an old man here, but you really have a set of skills. You actually thought of using this method to cheat girls' favor for you. I'm afraid you didn't cheat girls at the beginning. Ha ha. Cough, it's really for old disrespect. You'd better work quickly. Now it's important to solve this problem first. Xiao Yanhong scolded lightly with a red face. He couldn't help touching his nose with his hand. Then he moved and came to the edge of the cold pool. Shilin Hinterland, underground ice palace, next to the cold pool. A figure in a black robe stood here. A handsome face looked very white under the reflection of the cold light. Look at its appearance, it's not Xiao Yang. Who can there be? At this time, Xiao Yangjing gazed at the cold pool in front of him, frowned slightly, and couldn't help feeling a little nervous at the bottom of his heart. The cold pool at this moment is very different from the previous cold frost. At this moment, the water surface, which was as smooth as a mirror, sank deeply, forming a huge vortex with no bottom. In particular, the center of the vortex is a dark hole. You can't see to the end at a glance. The water is rotating rapidly, and the cold air is sucked in from the huge hole above, and then poured into the depth of the vortex. Jiu Lao, do you think this can really go down? Xiao Yang couldn't help asking. When he saw the huge vortex in front of him, even with Xiao Yang's mind, he couldn't help feeling a burst of tension. Hey, why are you afraid? Since you're afraid, don't go down. Anyway, the outbreak of Bingling Cold Spring is not complete. There are many opportunities in the future. You're not bad this time, right? Just don't know that girl outside. How many times can she withstand such an outbreak? Hearing Xiao Yanlue's suspicious words, Guyohihi smiled and joked deliberately. You. As soon as Jiuyu said this, Xiao Yang immediately stopped talking and sipped his mouth. Then he smiled helplessly. Well, you can tell me how to go down. I'll listen to your arrangement, younger generation. Hey, it's not easy to go down. You don't have to listen to my arrangement. Just jump down from here. Jiuyu seemed to say it carelessly. The words sounded in Xiao Yang's ears, but it surprised him for a while. The muscles at the corners of his mouth could not help twitching slightly. Xiao Yang scolded the old man in his heart. He has seen and tried the terror of Bingling Cold Spring with his own eyes. In the face of the power just now, Xiao Yang doesn't think he has the ability to compete with it. Now he wants him to jump like this. Isn't that the same as looking for death? You know, the reason why he dares to come here alone is because there is a big tree behind him. Otherwise, how dare he come here and die? Hey, let's beat your heart. I'll keep you safe with the old man. Seeing Xiao Yang's hesitation, Jiuyu couldn't help laughing. He immediately took back his joking tone and said it seriously. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang was convinced that the old man was not lying to him, but let him jump down unprepared. I'm afraid no one can do it. Looking carefully at the huge vortex in front of Xiao Yang was afraid, but at this time, behind him, an invisible soul kicked heavily on his ass. While Xiao Yang was shocked, his whole body immediately fell into the vortex uncontrollably. What a delay! Beside the cold pool, the body shape was slightly illusory, which showed the body shape. He shook his head and shrugged helplessly, and then suddenly disappeared with a bang. The next moment, the body just fell into the vortex. The sound of Xiao Yang's body surface raised a raging forest white fire, which not only protected Xiao Yang's body, but also isolated all the springs from the terrible high temperature. In front of Jiuyu, the ice spirit cold spring is really nothing. Even though it has existed for 5,000 years, this so-called advantage has disappeared in the face of absolute power. The whole pool runs straight down. Under the isolation of bone spirit and cold fire, Xiao Yang will not be eroded by the extremely cold spring around him, which makes him feel lucky and start quickly to dive deeper into the pool. Without the pressure caused by these springs, Xiao Yang's speed is not hindered at all. However, in a short time, he has dived hundreds of feet, but it seems that he is far from reaching the end of the pool. The end of the line of sight is still dark. There is no life in the deep pool. It seems dead here. The lower it goes, the larger the space becomes. The world around is full of ice blue springs. At the end of the line of sight, there is no light except dark or dark. Even at a moment, Xiao Yang lost his direction. If it had not been for the guidance of Jiuyu, he would have been lost in the deep pool. Time passed gradually with Xiao Yang's dive. Xiao Yang persisted in such a long dive for half an hour. However, in the end, the world around him was still dark. At this moment, even with the isolation of bone and spirit, Xiao Yang still felt the cold of the surrounding spring. Of course, he didn't know that Jiuyu did it deliberately, and his purpose was naturally to make Xiao Yang in a very sober state from beginning to end with the help of these extremely cold springs, so that he wouldn't be broken by the emotion at the bottom of his heart. In this endless dive, Xiao Yang gradually doesn't know how long and how deep he has been diving. He can only ensure that his direction is not wrong and his original purpose at the bottom of his heart. The world around him became more and more dark. Xiao Yang seemed to have lost his perception of this space. He was like a helpless bird in the night sky. He could not go or retreat. Time is like the running water around the body, which is missed by Xiao Yang quickly. The cold temperature wrapped Xiao Yang's whole body. It seemed that the bone spirit cold fire could no longer support it. Xiao Yang had reached the end of his trip. Even if he had not seen any valuable results, he could no longer continue to dive. Xiao Yang's body stopped in the water. He could clearly feel the temperature of these springs across the forest white flame. Without the protection of different fire, he might be frozen to death here in an instant. Even if such a result will not happen for the time being, if Xiao Yang continues to dive, this result is possible. Continue to dive, or choose to give up. Between persistence and life, Xiao Yang must make a choice. After all, Xiao Yang still mobilized all the fighting spirit in his body. When his mind moved, the gorgeous different fire rose on the body surface. In this deep and quiet world, it was like a blooming flower, blooming gorgeous colors. Moreover, it was the only hot flower in this dark and indifferent world. Xiao Yang set off again and continued to walk towards the depths of the spring. At the bottom of Xiao Yang's heart, Jiuyu smiled with satisfaction. The cold around Xiao Yang in Venezuela also faded quickly, as if all indifference had been diluted under this gorgeous flower. As everyone knows, he is not as powerful as he imagined, but someone secretly carried all this for him. Time passed quickly, and Xiao Yang's action, even if not slow, was indistinguishable in this dark world. Finally, until a certain moment, Xiao Yang, who continued to dive, suddenly flashed a star at the end of his sight and in the endless darkness. Even if it flashed and died, it looked like a beautiful glow in Xiao Yang's eyes and remained in his mind for a long time. This video will end here.